Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet as well. We're going to see if we can't get Eric Engels in here as well as we break down Game 2 of this series between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Montreal Canadiens. Quite the bounce-back game by the Montreal Canadiens. Can't wait to talk about it with Kenney. And you know what? Where is he? Well, he's in the green room where he likes to hang out sometimes, eating nothing but blue M&Ms. That's in his rider. That's all he'll eat. But you know what? It's good that he's there because he likes to be played, and it's part of his contract now. That's how he enters the show. So let's get at it, people. Enter Kenney. Here we go. There's the guy. How are you doing tonight, Kenney?
Fantastic. Fun hockey game to watch, and yeah, beautiful day to be alive. Yeah, we love having the playoffs, and great to be chatting about Game 2 here. Nice to dispel a couple of the North Division stinks narratives that were out there, that's for sure.
You know what, Kenny? You know how you can tell you got a hit on your hands? I play that song, and then the chat room just starts building up, and the eyes on the show starts building up and building up. It's awesome. And you know what's awesome was we got a series to talk about here, just like you were alluding to. I think there was a lot of people thinking, and you know what? I'm not going to say I entirely thought that happening, but I was concerned about the Montreal Canadiens starting out Game 1 the way that they did. They looked so good, and then it looked like Vegas figured them out. And I was wondering, did Montreal lose their legs? Was this the rest versus rust thing? Or is this a situation where, Vegas kind of sized up their opponent, gave him a couple jabs, and then thought, I can take this guy, and then kind of really poured it on? What was your take on what the Canadiens were able to accomplish in Game 2?
Yeah, a couple big things, and we talked about them after Game 1. Man, oh man, the return of Jeff Petrie, just an outstanding performance, and just completely changes the dynamic of the Big Four, Sean. We saw it firsthand in that Jets series. Having Petrie on that right side with Joel Edmondson, it just completely changes them. They kept the front of the net a lot cleaner than they did in Game 1. That whole battle for the blue paint thing that Vegas clearly won that battle in Game 1. I'd say that was a lot more even in Game 2. And Petrie is just so calm with the puck. We heard, you were on the call with Dom Ducharme as well. Just his poise with the puck, it changes the Canadiens so much. I mean, Edmondson's saying he's been their best defenseman all year, and he was just so calm. I mean, he got involved offensively right away, got a couple shots through, very good defensively, and really helped them get going on that back end. And then it just slots everyone in their proper area. And then they can really lean in on those top four. Yes, sure, the third pairing guys, they switch him in and out, and Gustafsson hurt his knee briefly. John Merrill comes back in, but they lean so hard on that top four. It makes such a big difference. Like Jason York talked about, Brett Kulak is out of the game. I mean, I personally like Romanov. I would like to see him still in the lineup, maybe over Merrill, but Merrill has that experience, so you understand what Dom Ducharme is looking for. So it starts for me at the defense position, but then two other things that we wanted to see on a Montreal perspective. The fourth line, much more involved again. They get themselves a big goal right out of the gate. Yoel Armia gets to the net, shows off those soft hands we saw for so many years with the Jets. Gets good body position, buries a shot, really gets them going. Corey Perry, effective all night. And it just allowed, they were much more disciplined, so that fourth line never got out of rotation. So that's another important thing for them. And then when we had Eric Engels on his column this morning about the Canadiens, what line needed to be better for them? The third line. What happens in the game? Kotkaniemi gets an assist. Josh Anderson wins an incredible board battle with Nick Holden to spring Paul Byron, who hadn't scored a goal since the shorthanded game winner in game one of these entire playoffs. Snaps the drought. That line comes up with the big goal. And now suddenly we're not talking about a sweep. We're talking about an even series where the underdog has taken home ice advantage. Still a lot of things to like if you're the Vegas Golden Knights. They played well in the second and third, but full marks to Montreal. They had a good start, a better start than their opponent in consecutive games, and this time they found a way to get a bounce, as Corey Perry described it, and ran with it. And then, yes, did they have to hang on a little bit late? Sure, but that's part of winning hockey. You need to learn how to, you know your opponent's coming. Yes, there were some mistakes. We heard Dom Ducharme, puck management. Yeah, they need to do a better job. 2 of those face-off zone or goal plays came off of icings. So, I was very impressed by how the Canadiens bounced back, and great series now. The home ice advantage has been lost. Montreal goes home. They're going to get an extra 1,000 fans. And now it's really on in terms of this series. And you're fascinated to see what the next level of adjustments are.
Rick Stockley asking the hard questions here. The show is Kenney and Renny, but on screen we're always Renny and Kenney. Why? It's in our contracts. We had to flip a coin. Was it the Renny and Kenney show or the Kenney and Renny show? We flipped the coin. Kenny got Kenney and Renny, but that means I get the front billing on the screen here. Kenny gets the ears, I get the eyes. That's how it goes. Kenny, I wanted to
Sean's
ask
a diva is what he means to tell you, Rick. Sean's the diva in this relationship.
I'm not the one who needs nothing but blue M&Ms in my rider, Kenny.
It's Skittles, actually. It's Skittles for me. I'm more of a Skittles guy.
I love it when you're in the green room because I can make up whatever stories I want about you.
That's true. That's true.
Perfect. Let's talk about Joel Armia. You were talking about
Sure.
Corey Perry talking about them getting that bounce. Joel Armia is the guy who benefits from it. But boy, oh boy, Joel Armia, we are 2 guys who got to see how he started out and the kind of evolution of this player. We knew that he was good. We knew he was a good penalty killer. He had some absolutely gorgeous goals as a Winnipeg Jet.
Usually against Dallas, he'd be good for a toe drag dangle every 3 or 4 games against Dallas. Highlight reel special.
Yes, well, Patrick, those Finnish Winnipeggers loved playing against Dallas because Patrick Laine absolutely loved that as well. Maybe Ville Heinola will be a guy who loves to chew up Dallas as well. But Ken, I remember having this conversation with Joel Armia when he was a Winnipeg Jet shortly after scoring one of those goals. We'd done a story on him on Hockey Night in Canada where we'd showed some of those just highlight reel goals, some of the best goals of that year. And I remember sitting down beside him and saying, your confidence must be sky high right now. And he said to me, you know what? I don't think my confidence has ever been lower. And he felt like he couldn't ever build up any kind of momentum. And I don't say that with the Winnipeg Jets. I think just in his career as an NHLer. Now, when I watch him play, you very much know what you are going to get out of Joel Armia. And I wonder how much of that he picked up in this year alone. I know he's been good for Montreal for a long time, but when I watch him play with those 2 players, he looks like those 2 players. And what those 2 players do, to your point, when they came out in a game like this, is extremely effective. What have you seen in the growth of Joel Armia from the young man that we covered, that I think you knew this as well, struggled with confidence at times with the Winnipeg Jets, to a guy who really seems like he's figured out his role in the NHL?
Yeah, he had a big opportunity going to Montreal. He was used on the power play right away, right out of the gate. Sometimes even in the first unit. Occasionally the second, obviously. But he's a guy who always had confidence in terms of his ability, but he just never really put it together for consistent stretches. The biggest thing with Armia, he'd score that highlight reel goal and then he'd kind of go quiet for about a week or 2 at a time. And now he's found a way. He's not a big banger, but he's found a way to really leverage his body. He plays big now. He doesn't go out and have massive hits like a Josh Anderson, but he wins so many puck battles. He's always been so strong on his stick, Sean. It's just not just great hands. He's got he uses his body well. He's, sneaky quick, I guess I would say. He's not a burner per se, but he wins, gets to the puck, wins those battles, and he really has found his consistency. And the one thing we talked about, and he learned to become, here's a guy who was always an offensive guy, Sean, but then he became an important penalty killer. And then he was, then he embraced the role of checking when he was with Lowry and Kopp. So he's really evolved as a player. And now you, like you said, you know exactly what you're going to get from Joel Armia. I think that this is classic. So he had a great start to the year, and then I think he was on the COVID list and sort of dipped a bit. And then all of a sudden you end up on the fourth line and you think, well, this guy's going to go quiet now. Well, after 7 goals in the regular season, now when the time is so important, he's got 5 goals already. He's got the same number of goals as Tyler Toffoli, who led the Canadiens in goals. So good on Toffoli to keep it up, but when you can get the fourth line contributing the way that this line, they're not a real fourth line, right? I mean, that's the thing. We know that they're leaned on more than a regular fourth line would be, and that's why he's been so effective. I love the way that Armia is playing. I mean, he's a guy that is probably, again, he's not going to cash in big money in free agency, but every team that is looking to push themselves over the top wants a guy like Armia to be able to slot in on the third or fourth line. In an emergency, Armia can play on your second line if you have to, but if you have Armia on your third and fourth lines, you know that you have a deep hockey team. So I don't sleep at all, Corey, so don't worry. I'll be ready for my golf game in the morning. There's no worries about that. But no, I'm with you. I mean, I think that Armia is the kind of guy that, I mean, we've talked about expansion a little bit, and if Mason Appleton is lost in expansion, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets offered Joel Armia a contract. Would you? I mean,
my goodness, I think he's a phenomenal. I mean, if you're a team that's trying to round out your depth, and that's what the Jets are saying that they need to do, right? The Jets have said, given a big vote of confidence for their core, he's the kind of guy that those are the pieces that you build around a core that give you success. They're showing it in Montreal right now.
Right.
Yeah. Here, I want to bring this up. Did you see this thing that's floating around the internet? Someone had sent that to me early, that Mark Stone had said that the Jet or playing the Canadiens was going to be like playing an AHL team. Where did that come from? Because someone had sent me a private message and said, I know the Stone family. I'm from Brandon, and he said this. And at the time, I thought that it was someone trying to bait me into publishing something. Right? Which maybe it was, but they did. Like, I've seen it all over Instagram. Do you know where this comes from? I didn't not imagine Mark Stone having said anything.
There's no chance he said that. That's not the kind of player he was. You can see how much he respects them in his post game availability again today. The disappointment was expressed by the Golden Knights about how they had 2 poor starts now in a row. They respect their opponent. This had nothing to do with not respecting their opponent. They just had a slow start. It's been something that's plagued them the entire playoffs. They've been behind in almost every game they've played. I mean, it's certainly impossible that Armia wants to remain with Montreal. Why wouldn't he? I mean, he loves it there, but he's going to become an unrestricted free agent. So I was just suggesting that he's going to have some other suitors. So, yeah, no, I mean, this was not a lack of respect. We know that Pete DeBoer respects the Montreal Canadiens. So do his players. I mean, this was a team that had a little bit of a slow start in the first period. And then even in a game where Montreal built a big lead, there was still a hang on for dear life element to that game. And I mean, you see Karlsson, the puck rolls off Karlsson's stick on that backhand chance, right? I mean, that was a great chance. In front of the net, you had Janmark with a great opportunity. I mean, Petrangelo, great. I mean, let's also touch on Petrangelo quickly. I mean, in the first game, we talked about how he was probably the best player on the ice and had no points. Tonight, he has 2 important goals, and again, is such a good player in the game that everybody on both teams are talking about how well he's been playing. So one big thing for Vegas, they had a lot of disruption in losing Chandler Stevenson to the upper body injury day to day. That sounded so much like, we know they're good friends. It sounded so much like Paul Maurice in that post game where Pete DeBoer said upper body day to day. Here's the other part. I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, but did the Vegas Golden Knights miss their top center? Of course they did, but Keegan Kolesar came in and played just an absolutely excellent game.
Oh boy.
For Vegas. I mean, he was so involved in the forecheck, won an important draw on the first goal by Petrangelo. Goal, yeah. I mean, what amazing job. We're talking about Stone, man. His ability to get out of the way and keep that screen, man, just an awesome play there. And it was a very important thing. Yeah, no. I mean, Armia that's what I was talking about before. Now Armia is very consistent. He contributes on the games where he doesn't chip in offensively, and that's something that he had to learn.
Waiter's asking what's up with Jeff Petrie's eyes. It's broken blood vessels. I don't necessarily know how that happened. I don't know if it had anything to his injury. I doubt it. I was going to say, Kenny, I had a funny story about this. It was said in the broadcast, he had broken blood vessels. There's no pain associated with it. It looks like it's terribly painful, but I can speak from experience. I had that before. And I wouldn't have even known I'd had it. I woke up and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I woke up and she was like, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" and I had this terrible bloodshot eye. And I was like, she's like, "Are you hurt? Do I need to take you to the hospital?" Anyways, long story short, it's funny. It's kind of like an ongoing joke because there was like an important wedding or something like that we had to go to. So there's a picture of us. My wife looks gorgeous, and I look like a total monster. I look like Frankenstein with this big bloody eye.
Terminator
and it's
eyes.
funny. She just kept that picture at every stage of our life. It's like somewhere where like she looks great. It's like Beauty and the Beast, right? Like she's just trying to remind everybody, of like who's the beauty and who's the beast in the relationship. I can tell you from experience, it doesn't hurt. I want to get back to Keegan Kolesar, Winnipeg kid. I met Keegan Kolesar at Elite Fitness. Young guy. He was still with the Seattle Seahawks at that time. Really knows Matt Barzell. They were
Thunderbirds.
Yeah, sorry. Why? Who did I say?
You said Seahawks.
Oh my goodness.
It's the
Seattle Thunderbirds.
People in the chat room. Sean's got a little bit of jet lag. He just got to
Montreal
got
off the plane
after the 2 flights today. We're just not used to our road travel like we normally are.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I am on the road. I just finished flying. I hopped out. I missed the first period, so if my analysis is a little off, which it is on most nights, I've at least got an excuse for this one. But Keegan Kolesar, met him while he was playing with the Thunderbirds at Elite Performance, and oh my goodness, this is one of the nicest kids you will ever meet in your entire life. Just phenomenal. And it's funny to see him because he's huge. He's like, I don't know what his stats are. I'm guessing, if my memory serves me correct, he's about 6'3", 6'4", and just muscular guy. And you'd walk into the gym and just see him throwing around weight like crazy, and then put it down and just have the biggest smile and introduce himself to you. And I remember there was a couple of years later when I took my girls, along with my wife and my father-in-law, to their first ever Blue Bomber game, and it just so happened that he was sitting behind me in the stands with a bunch of his friends, and his birth father, K.D. Williams, was at that game and was being honored. I think they put him up into the Ring of Honor for the Blue Bombers. I think that's what he was there for that night. And he'd mentioned while he was getting interviewed on the field, he was there and he wanted to see his son. But it was funny because Keegan's sitting behind me and recognizes me from the gym, and he was always nice and always really like courteous and polite and treated you really well. And I always used to tell him, I can't wait till the day that I get to interview you, in the NHL when you make it there. And I was talking with him back and forth, and I kind of turned around, and my wife's like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "Well, that guy is going to be playing in the NHL soon. He's going to be a phenomenal player." And it's good that he's proved me right. I also remember during the 2018 run for the Jets, he got brought in to kind of be along for the ride with Vegas at that point. He was one of the guys after he got pulled in towards the end of the season, just so that he'd get like a view of what it was like behind the scenes when they're going there. And you think about those little moments in an organization where they grab those players and give them that kind of behind the scenes experience, how important that is. Because holy smokes, Ken, I know you've been watching him and talking about the stuff he's been doing, but he has been phenomenal for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, he really has. And here's a guy where he's used to, as you mentioned, he played on the line with Barzell and had an outstanding run. They lost in the final of the Brandon Wheat and then won the next year. And just a great individual, as you mentioned. I've got to know him a little bit too. We interviewed him the day he was drafted by Columbus. I've stayed in touch a little bit too, and there's obviously a connection too. I covered his father, Charles Peterson, who unfortunately passed away this year due to COVID. And great to see a nice light shining on Keegan, shining a nice light on Charles today during the morning availabilities and speaking so well about him, and then to be able to have such a great game tonight and just talk about how. I covered Charles Peterson when he was with the Winnipeg Goldeyes. I mean, here's a guy who was a really high-end prospect with the Pittsburgh Pirates, like a legitimate 5-tool player in independent baseball. Just, spent a short time with Winnipeg Gold, I believe, a year and a half, but just a big, larger than life personality. It loves the sport. He was a scout with the St. Louis Cardinals before he passed away, and it's just great to see, unfortunate circumstances obviously bringing it to light, but to see that light being shone by Keegan, and talking about what kind of an impact he had on his life as well, which it's great to see. And Keegan's just a guy who's just going to keep growing. I mean, a couple of years ago when he was with the Chicago Wolves, he got moved to center a little bit. He can play the wing, obviously. Right wing is his natural position, but he is so big and strong and a powerful player, and he's got really smart. He's got pretty good hands too. I mean, that's the other part about Kolesar. People see him and they think, oh, well, he's just this big wrecking ball. Well, yes, he is a big physical player, but he's got great skill as well. Scored a lot in junior, and here's a guy who just jumped right in and played on the top line with Vegas today, and was a seamless transition. I made a couple of really good entries where he found Max Pacioretty coming in late, and he found Mark Stone. So I was really impressed by his game overall. I thought he was really good in game one also. That line was very solid overall, and man, he's just a guy who's starting to grow as a player, and he's really going to become a dominant force. Like, he is that true legitimate power forward that you just don't see a lot of in the NHL anymore, and really starting to find his way, and another great Manitoban who's going to continue to do great things in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, 3rd round pick. I believe he was the first ever Vegas Golden Knight player on the ice in that jersey. Didn't they? He was their first.
Well, no, they signed the player who played for the Wheat Kings before that.
No, but I think I was seeing a video a little while ago that when they very first time a player stepped on the ice from the Vegas Golden Knights organization in a Vegas Golden Knights jersey, I believe it was him. Also, scored his first goal earlier this year. I gave him a text, and he got right back to me right away. Great kid, awesome guy, humble as all heck.
Reed Duke was the first signed player by Waiters there. Sorry to interrupt. Reed Duke was the first signed player, but yes.
Well done. Let's get to okay. I thought this was really interesting because let's talk about Jason York. We had on our show yesterday, and he was talking about just how great Alex Petrangelo was, and he didn't have the numbers, but he thought he was the best player on the ice. You think Alex Petrangelo was the best player on the ice again tonight for the Vegas Golden Knights?
I would say it was right up there for sure. He was so involved on the ice all the time. The only other player who was as noticeable, I would say, Alex Tuch was just absolutely flying again. I thought the third line wasn't as effective early on, I would say, but Tuch was just buzzing around. I really liked the way that he was able to use his speed to generate offense at a time when their team wasn't really generating much of anything. I thought the biggest thing for Vegas is that, yes, they got involved later on, but their third line or their second line wasn't, the Misfits line was not as active until later on. Carlson obviously had the great chance, but the Marchessault-Smith-Carlson combination, I didn't feel as though they had played to the level that we've been used to seeing. Then, yes, they did get involved. I think Carlson did win the draw on the broken play, and maybe we'll go there. We'll go back to Petrangelo, but what did you think of Dom Ducharme's answer about how active the Vegas defense has been? You asked him the question, then there was a follow-up from Arpon Basu from The Athletic about the face-off plays and learning. I mean, those were two identical plays that they've been scored on, and Ducharme seemed a little bit annoyed, but I'm not sure if he was as annoyed by the question as he was by the coverage on the play that led to the goal. And let's not, we should also point out too that this is a perfect shot by Petrangelo. Petrie got over to the lane, but the shot goes between the legs where he goes down to block with one leg, and it's through the shin pads, and then it just hits Price and kind of trickles behind him. But they actually didn't play it terribly, but it's something that when it happens twice in a series, you think that you should have that covered off.
Right.
I guess. What did you think of his answers to those two questions?
Well, it was really interesting because I started thinking about it after that Alex Petrangelo, his first goal, because he shoots that thing and it's a seeing eye puck. And it's one of those things where you like, if you went back and super high defed it and slowed it down, that thing may have skimmed 3 different jerseys on its way through, a hole about that big, just enough for the puck to get through. And I thought to myself, if I'm the Montreal Canadiens, I mean, I know it sucks for Carey Price to not see that. You want Carey Price to be able to see everything. But for the most part, that can't be a high there's not a high payoff for a shot like that. Like, think about how many shots you would have to shoot to get that result. It can't be high. And so I started wondering if what the Montreal Canadiens are basically doing is giving up those shots. And that's exactly what Dom Ducharme had said when I'd asked him that question is, look, you're going to have to give up something at some point, and I'd rather give that up than seam passes or slot shots. And it makes me wonder. And so he said, there's some things that we can do, to get better at those situations. But for the most part, it sounds like the Canadiens have landed on this is what they are going to give up in this series. And they think that the potential for Vegas to continue scoring from the point like they have been at that rate is not that high. And it's interesting when you get into these kind of things, because we always, when we're covering the Jets, you always hear Paul Maurice talk about certain things, and there's faith that if they keep doing something, maybe it didn't work out, maybe it hasn't worked out for the last 5 games, but it's going to start working out. And it seems to me that Dom Ducharme has landed on the idea that, hey, we're going to keep, that is what we are going to give them, and we think that in the end that they are scoring above what they should be scoring on right now from those spots, and that number will go down. And if we can keep doing what we're doing everywhere else on the ice, we're going to be okay. And I think one of the things that kind of shows how okay they are with that is that Marchessault line, the Misfits line, Riley Smith and Marchessault and Carlson, they were held without a shot until 12:20 left in the third. And I mean, this is a former 40-goal scorer. These are, go back to 2018. This was the line that absolutely ended the Winnipeg Jets. They were phenomenal. They kept that line without a shot until 12:20 in the third period. So whatever they're doing, it's working in regards to that. But all of these goals keep coming from the point. I think they've got a little bit of, some more tweaks to do. I think what they need to do more than anything else is to do a better job of shut down those shooting lanes. I think the Jets, when we saw the Jets at their best this season, they were really good at that. Mason Appleton, Andrew Kopp are both guys that are really, really good at just not allowing the puck to get past that first layer of penetration. I don't know that the Canadiens can do that, because I think the Canadiens more focus on eliminating and crowding the slot to not allow anything through there. But it seems to me like the Canadiens have picked their poison in this series, and they're going to continue going with exactly that.
Yeah, for me, that's a little bit of a dangerous formula when you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, because Shea Theodore and Alex Petrangelo are incredibly active at all times. So sure, if you feel that that's the least of the dangerous opportunities, fine. But to me, Sean, and I think you agree, with Theodore and Petrangelo especially, and then you also have Alec Martinez, who, he had the best scoring chance of the entire game. Price made a joke about using all of his extremities, but I don't recall another chance where the puck was actually behind him, and somehow the top spin off of his pants had the puck go over the net and out of play instead of into the net. From the angle he was shooting at, it's almost impossible for the puck to go where it went. So yes, incredible job by Price to push across, but that's just a flat out. That is just a flat out lucky save, and I don't say that casually.
But he's made so many of them.
Hang on a second. Yes, he's been incredible, and I am not knocking the save, but that's not what he intended to stop the puck with, because it was literally behind him. It was behind him, and it hit him off the behind, and somehow went up and not in. I still have no idea how. It's an incredible save, and I am tipping my cap, stick tapping, whatever you want to do about it, but that is not the body part he had planned on making the save. And the puck, I don't think Price predicted that, if I can get my back half of my pants to stop the puck, that it's going to be stopped and not go in. That's just an incredible chance. So back to the original point, I think that, of course, I understand where Ducharme is coming from, but I think that's one of those scenarios where he knows they need to do a better job against the Vegas defensemen because of how active they are. Even too, Zach Whitecloud had an incredible backhand chance. I think he might have had more time than he expected to have when he cut into the middle there. Man, oh man. Price, incredible save, but I I think that Vegas's defense will be more active than less as the series goes along. Their defense is a huge part of their offense and how they generate offense. So I don't think that that aspect of their game is going anywhere. And I do think the Canadiens are going to have to make some adjustments in order to try to minimize their impact in the game.
Well, I mean, I agree with you there, but isn't it? I mean, again, to the idea of them picking their poison. Isn't the idea of shutting down the slot, especially after what we saw in that first game, isn't that kind of? I mean, are you able to shut everything down?
That's what I mean. They still had tons. I mean, I think the last shot stat, they still had 12 slot shot attempts. I mean, that's still a pretty high number. So, and they weren't all defenseman shots. But all I'm saying is that it's a risky. I agree with you that yes, the first Petrangelo goal, there is a big element of luck. But yes, you got the traffic, and of course, like. Basically, Stone pulls a Houdini to get out of the way at the last second. I mean, otherwise that puck hits his shin pad and goes into the corner, and we're not even talking about the play itself. But I just think it's a risky proposition, even though I understand that keeping it to the outside is a great play. But they're still very active, and they will join the. That's the other thing. They're a good team. They're very active on the rush, so you can't always take away the play on the rush unless you have incredible back pressure. So I thought that a couple people have said it in the Rich Pope mentioned Josh Anderson. I love the way that Josh Anderson played today. I think that he was far more engaged physically. Really good net drive early in the game, and Fleury had to make an incredible save. That was Petrie that had that great chance right out of the gate. So I really liked Anderson's game. Kotkaniemi, yes, one bad turnover that Marchessault got going. And I love that interaction, Sean, where during the stoppage in play, Ducharme is just reinforcing, you're playing great. You did everything right. You reset, you went down low, but just keep that puck in your feet. Don't try to force a play and feed their turnover game, which is exactly what happened on that play. I like the way you saw the interaction. You saw Kotkaniemi listening, basically acknowledging that, yeah, my bad, I can't do that again. But he did not get tentative after that, which is what you need from your young players. And that's why I love that. I love that interaction, and I love that they caught that on camera. And you saw it. It was not a coach reaming out his young player. It was a very calm approach by Ducharme. He reinforced the good things that he did on the shift in terms of getting the puck, keeping it low. He was very patient, and then he kind of panicked, if you will. It was one of those situations where as soon as the puck was off his stick, he probably knew he shouldn't have done it, but the fact that he made the realization and then talked about it. So I liked all of those things about that interaction. In terms of this question by Samuel 22, so this is very simple. The Ottawa Senators were in a rebuild. Mark Stone was on the verge of becoming a free agent. I don't think that it looked pretty clear that Stone wasn't interested in a rebuild, so he was on the market. It's almost an impossible player to replace. He essentially was their captain. I mean, he wasn't officially. He was an alternate, but he basically was the leader of the team. He wasn't going to re-sign for Ottawa, so they went out and tried to leverage the best prospect pool that they could get for him. And Vegas had a great connection with Kelly McCrimmon there. They had a feeling that they could sign him. They had a window to negotiate, I believe. And Stone ended up locking down on a long-term deal and then became the captain of the Golden Knights, which has been an absolutely great fit for him. Stone has been awesome in these playoffs and will continue to be excellent. But that's why that trade was made. But, man, yeah, if you're Ottawa, you're thinking, you see all these kids now and you think, man, if only they could find a Mark Stone. Well, you had Mark Stone, but you couldn't keep him. So, great trade by Vegas to go out and win that trade.
Yeah, Waiters brings up a good point here. It got a little bit ugly towards the end there. I mean, this idea of, the back and forth between was Eugene Melnyk going to pay it? If I remember correctly, it also seemed to, down the stretch there, that they weren't so sure that they were going to be moving Stone because it felt like there was a potential extension there until right near the very end. Right. And this gets interesting, too, because the Winnipeg Jets were involved and there was interest. And this is the one thing that always kind of pops up is Jack Roslovic. I don't know that this is it for certain, but it very, very much sounds like Jack Roslovic's name was part of that, and that Jack Roslovic was a non-starter. was what was said at
Well,
that
the words
time.
were untouchable was a word that was used, right? I mean,
Right.
that was something that was, I think, Cheveldayoff said it publicly after the deadline had passed. So, I mean,
Yes.
man,
So-
I mean, if you're the Jets, you're probably regretting that, right? I mean, you have to be. But the biggest thing too, it wasn't as simple as that just happening. The Jets would have wanted some assurance that Stone would have signed a similar long-term deal as he signed with Vegas. And to be honest, at the time that was happening, it would have been problematic because of the deals required for Laine and Kyle Connor had not been signed yet, right? At the time of that deal?
Yeah.
If
It was going to get expensive. You were going to have
Right.
to, you were kind of
You
going
would have had to
choose.
there would have had to be some money going out of money. The money out part would have been the challenge, I think, there. So
Yeah.
those were definitely part of the guys that they wanted, but it just created such an interesting scene because Pierre Dorion was basically in Winnipeg for almost an entire week because their farm team was playing the Moose, and I think the Chicago Wolves also rolled through town, and so it looked like there was maybe this deal to be had, but he was also watching Vegas's prospects because they were also having conversations there as well.
Right, and who's the defenseman, the major defenseman, 15th or 16th overall pick, who ended up going the other way? We saw him in a game against the Jets this season.
He was really good. I'm blanking out.
Swedish player. We'll get to it.
Really good.
There's this thing called the internet, that we like to hit up every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Waiter says, wasn't it Roslovic and Niku that Ottawa wanted? We think that's what it was, and in retrospect, that would have made a lot of sense. Although, like Ken is saying, it could have been just a rental
Eric
at that
Brandstrom.
point.
Sorry, Brandstrom.
Eric Brandstrom,
Sorry,
there you go.
blanked out there for a second.
But I mean, I will say this about that situation. I do remember that, and I do remember. I do remember that I've probably maybe before even on Kenney and Renny. I know I did before we were doing Kenney and Renny. Probably had one of my heated eyes bulging rants that I go on every once in a while about why would Jack Roslovic, a guy who was not being used in the top six, be an untouchable? Why would that ever be the case? Because it very clearly looked like Winnipeg didn't really ever have a plan for him other than to, and I always said this, I always thought that they used him as a square peg in a round hole kind of thing. But the one thing I guess that you have to say out of this is if you would have used him to trade for Mark Stone, I do believe Mark Stone was going to Vegas anyway. I think the Kelly McCrimmon connection was too strong. He wanted to try something different, maybe get out of a Canadian market. You go to a team right there that looks ready, built, and ready to go, and you know that you can help them. I know that people aren't happy with the Laine Roslovic trade, especially the way things worked out with Pierre-Luc Dubois. A lot of people aren't happy with it. But in the end, the asset that you used Jack Roslovic on was a longer-term asset, right? There's once they picked up Pierre-Luc Dubois, there's 4 years of team control involved in that player, as opposed to they had a couple months of control over Mark Stone in that 2009. That said, Ken, we talked about this, and you brought it up, and let's go down that road. Scott Billick, who we have on the show all the time, loves to talk about the Jets kicking the can down the road. What kind of difference would Mark Stone have made in that first round series against the St. Louis Blues? I mean, I honestly think that if he would have picked up Mark Stone, he would have instantaneously become the Winnipeg Jets' best player.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, you look back at, this is a great hindsight thing. And then we mentioned too, of course, Mark Stone we're talking about right wing depth for the Jets and, great leadership. And he's just such a driver, right? I mean, and the other part about Stone that gets, yes, it is recognized, but his two-way play is just absolutely exceptional, right? His ability to knock down pucks, he steal in terms of takeaways, he's almost always right near the top. Yeah, he is now a legitimate Selke candidate. Plus, he can still run the power play. He's a great shooter. He's an unselfish player, and he's always around the puck. The puck follows him around because he knows where to be. He's such an insightful player. He's in the right position. So, yeah, let's go back to Ray's comment there. Let's get back to the Canadiens.
Yeah, let's go back to Razor, my man Razor, who was texting me all night. I told him, bring it on the Kenney and Renny show, I said. Go at it.
And also, Ray, we have been talking about Marc Bergevin throughout the course of the year. This is a guy who identified what the Canadiens needed, and he's really given their identity a real boost by bringing in Corey Perry to have some edge and some playoff experience. And look, there's Corey Perry in front of Marc-Andre Fleury again. And when he falls down, he's right in front of Fleury again, right? He's getting to the net. He's making smart plays. He's getting the puck back to Edmondson on that first goal by Armia. He's playing on the power play. He's getting involved. He's agitating Reeves and Carrier. I really thought that he was excellent again tonight. And then going out and getting a guy like Eric Staal. I mean, and good on Eric Staal, right? This is a guy who's been a top 6 player for the majority of his career, had a tough year, embraced the opportunity to play on a fourth line role, gives everything that he possibly has in pursuit of another cup, right? I mean, you love to see that from players. And then too, Armia, it's a contract year for him. Does he want to be playing on the fourth line? Probably not. Everyone wants to play more minutes, but he makes the most out of the minutes that he is given. And man, it's so impressive to see. And Edmondson, let's also talk about Edmondson. 2 assists again tonight, but back to being that big physical presence. I mean, one unfortunate play for Edmondson, and it wasn't a bad play. Armia was there on the icing. Like, the puck, it looked either like the puck skipped or it was just over his stick. So the icing leads to the goal. But I thought Edmondson was great today. Having his partner back was such an important quality for him. He played with that physical edge, got involved offensively. I love the way he's playing. Paul Byron talked about it in the Zoom call. This is a guy who's won a Stanley Cup. You know what? He knows what it takes to win. He's a physical force, and all the folks who thought it wasn't going to work out well for Joel Edmondson, they haven't really had a lot to talk about because Edmonton's been great for the Canadiens, and him signing long-term there was such a smart move on their back end. I'm so impressed by what he's been able to bring to the table.
Well, speaking of bringing stuff to the table,
exactly.
Our man in Montreal, Eric Engels, always brings some great stuff to the table. And he's done writing. He's ready to join us here. We love to see him on the show. Let's bring him in. Eric, my man, how are you doing?
Well, first of all, I'm good. And I just want to pick up on what Ken was just saying, because I know of one team that didn't want to sign Joel Edmondson. And I think they really could have used him to the point where I think they were telling their pro scouts to stop bringing his name up. And that would be the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know there was some guys that wanted to sign him there, and they were told, don't go there. Doesn't play our style of game. Can't play our style of game. Well, I think the play that he makes at the end of the game epitomized what you saw from the Canadiens tonight. This was an all-heart win. And I just got finished writing about it. And you see the mark on Brendan Gallagher's cheekbone after taking a high hit from Alex Petrangelo. It used to be that you'd say that, that's Gallagher. That's this Canadiens team. Like, that's who they are now. And that's what you need at this time of year. It's about who wants it more. And it's so age-old, and it's such a fun way of looking at it because we know which team is better between these two. It's, the odds were not astronomically high in Vegas's favor because they're worse. The Canadiens needed to win tonight, and they did everything they had to do to get the win. And I thought it was a really gutsy performance.
One other thing, how does that not, how does Karlsson not get caught? These are the hits that bother me. So I don't want to turn this into a roughing deal because we've had enough rough talk for the season. But
go well when we do that.
That's got to be called. I'm sorry. Like, that's clearly on the numbers face first into the boards. But as you talked about, Eric, that epitomizes what their team is. Edmonton isn't up there flailing about where's the call. He shakes his head and then gets back out and is out on the ice to protect the lead. That's what I love about Edmondson, but that's got to be called. That's a hit that should be called. That's either boarding or whatever you want to call it. It's boarding. I want that called more. That is one of the things that annoys me the most. Cross-checking boarding, you can call it whatever you want, but call it. I'm sorry, you can't do that. It's the most dangerous play when the player's back is to you and there's any quick jolt. You can go face first into the boards, and it can be a neck injury. It could have been way worse for him, and those plays annoy me so much, and I wish there was a bigger crackdown on them.
Yeah, you know what? Vegas didn't have a penalty to that point in the game. So,
right.
But what I like about that play is, Edmondson knows he's going to eat it, and he eats it. He goes face first. You see his face, it was like a cartoon, his face getting plastered to the glass. Yeah. And he doesn't care. He's willing to do that to make the play. And it's a cliche. Willing to take the hit to make the play. He's getting steamed by a guy whose best asset is skating. And it's funny because I asked Karlsson what I think earlier in between the two games, how he has to balance getting engaged in the physical game that Sherratt and Edmondson and Weber want to play with him, and focusing on his own job. And he said, it's not really my job to get in on the forecheck and throw those hits. I'm more focused on getting the puck. And he didn't look too focused on getting the puck on that play.
Eric, I want to get into your Petrie column and how you think he changed things. But one of the things we like to do here is give people access to you. And this is an interesting one coming from what I'm assuming is a Habs fan who's popped up here. Everyone's welcome. Eric Romana, why was he pulled out? Why was the young man pulled out? Ken was saying the same thing. He'd like to see more from him. Why was he the guy who got pulled out when Petrie came in?
I mean, a couple of reasons. And he wasn't the only one. Kulak was pulled out also with Merrill playing. But look, I know people are really excited about Alex Romanov, but if you objectively watch the game and you rewatched it like a reporter like me would do, or Ken would do, or you would do, Sean, when you're covering a series, he had a great hit on Alex Petrangelo, but outside of that, the issues that kept him out of the lineup to begin with kind of were pervasive in game one, where he's a little hyperactive, he's a little overactive, he's rushing into lanes and kind of blocking the view of his own goaltender to try and make a big play where it's hard to settle yourself down. It's just a matter of experience. It's a normal thing. This kid is going to be a great player. His teammates love him. His attitude is phenomenal. We spoke to him after the long layoff and the opportunity for him to finally play. And, we talked about how he had tears in his eyes watching Game 3 happen and not being able to get into it. Finally a crowd at the Bell Center against Winnipeg. And, he just cares so much. And, he gets out. He's the first guy on the ice. He's the last guy to leave. He does everything the right way, and his future is so bright. And just, if Canadiens fans can take a step back, be objective about what they see from him, because there are certain mistakes that he makes that will cost you, and the margins are so thin right now. But what I urge Canadiens fans to do, take a step back, realize who this guy is learning from right now, watching, playing, whatever the experience is. He's got Shea Weber, he's got Jeff Petrie, Joel Edmondson, Ben Sherratt. These guys are playing smart, simple hockey, showing him the way, and I think it's all positive for him. I know people are upset and they want to see him in there, but the coach is making decisions to give himself a best chance to win. And if you think he should have pulled Gustafsson, well, look at the Canadiens' power play numbers since Gustafsson has come in. If you think he shouldn't have played Merrill, well, Merrill came off an injury, played over 12 and a half minutes, blocked a couple of key shots, got pucks out of the zone, played a simple, smart, effective game. And the reason he was in for Brett Kulak is because he's able to make that tie-up play that Kulak missed out on Janmark in Game 1. There's just a physical component that the Canadiens need on their back end that they thrive on, and those guys brought it.
I didn't see the final numbers there, Eric, but Ben Sherratt late in the third was the ice time leader for this team. Give us an idea, when Kenney and I will kind of talk about what we saw from where he came from, but just how important he's become to this back end.
Huge. And he's tied with Shea Weber, leading average ice time of the remaining players in the playoffs. Ben Sherratt, he is such a polarizing figure in Montreal because there are several plays. You look back at Game 1, gave away a couple pucks, made a couple of bad decisions, ended up in the back of their net. It's so easy to look at what Ben Sherratt doesn't do, but you have to appreciate what he does do. And he is such a force out there, and he's like a tornado in a sense. Like, if you get anywhere near that vortex, he's going to pull you in, and you're going to feel something. Like, there was a point in the game, it was out of frame. I'll tell you, this was the best part about being in the bubble last year. And, when I was there at the playoff games, there were certain things that I was able to see that you can't see at home that bring the value of Ben Sherratt into full focus. And I saw it in tonight's game. The camera kind of got out of frame. The play got away from Montreal's net, and he absolutely buried William Carrier in front of Carey Price. Like, he destroyed him. Like, this was a brutal hit. Nobody would have seen it unless they saw it out of the corner of their eye. I saw it, and it was exactly in the bubble last year. Every time Sean Couturier was anywhere near the net, he got a cross check or a punch in the head. Like, whether it was Weber or Sherrod, and just having a guy on your team that other players are afraid to go near. And like, if you look at game one, Pacioretty threw a big reverse hit on Sherrod, and Sherrod went to go maul someone and took an elbow straight to the face in the second period. Like, guys are so defensive around him. They are so up in arms when he's there that is his value. And he can make a simple play, and he is really unheralded in the offensive zone. He's really good at keeping plays alive. He's really good at jamming down the wall and getting implicated in the offensive zone. Puck movement is never going to be his specialty, but, you know, you take what you get and don't just focus on what you don't get.
And two, having Edmundson too, right? Having that double-barreled. I mean, it's not even just double-barreled because you have Weber also too that isn't afraid to apply a cross-check to someone's back. And Petry's also mean, especially for a real mobile player. Let's dig into Petry a little bit more. I talked about him before you got here, Eric, but how do you quantify what it meant to have him back? Because I think I felt like you saw it in the first three shifts. His ability to, you know, step up, make hits, that calm play at the blue line on the Toffoli goal, such a smart play. And Caulfield, just a nice little subtle pass to the top. I loved what Petry brought. What do you know, as someone who watches him all the time, how do you quantify what it meant to have him back in and to have everybody else slotted where they belong after that?
It's just everything, you know, like he does everything so well. He skates so well. He gets to the puck first. He makes a simple play. He makes the smart play, just dumping the puck through the air. He makes the stretch pass. He plays alive in the offensive zone. He doesn't panic with the puck. He's willing to make a play instead of just dumping it on net. He really, seriously, trying to read this.
You know, our audience is dying to find your thing. Everyone who ends up on the show, here. I'm going to show you exactly what. Here's my thing. Someone was asking about it last show, and I didn't want to. Upset things, but here, people were asking for the headband, so let's give them the headband. This is what happens when people ask for Sean's headband, Eric. So basically, Doubly, they're dying for you they're dying to see something from your background.
Want a gimmick.
They're looking for something. They need like a picture hung up, or they need something that they can cling to.
Get one of me hitting a hole in one or something. I'll take that.
That's part of Kenny's song. We'll have to bust that one out later. But yeah, we love that song. Tristan Rivers, who was on here earlier, has been making that for us. So anyway, that's what they're waiting for. It just means that they're taken to you, Eric, and they want to see what's happening here. I wanted to ask you about Dom Ducharme's answer to a question that I'd asked, because I was wondering if this is the direction that we were going to go into with this. I was wondering if his answer was going to be exactly what it was, in that all this defensive scoring that we're seeing from Vegas is maybe something that Montreal is okay with, because do you think Dom Ducharme believes Vegas right now is outscoring what they should be getting from the point, that maybe they've got their luck has been better than it should be at this point in the series?
I don't think so. I think he's annoyed, to be honest with you. He's annoyed with the fact that they did prepare for the plays coming off the face-off and that they didn't execute in those situations, whether it was getting a man out to the point on time or winning the face-off. Or not even winning the face-off, making sure you don't lose it clean. I think that there was a bit of frustration from him, and he made it pretty clear. His comments are great.
Oh boy!
Don't lose track. Keep rolling. Or are you getting a text?
I'm just reminding the public that the reason Jeff Petry didn't speak after the game tonight was because he was getting treatment on his injury. So we've got to multitask in our world here, guys.
Yes, exactly.
It's all good.
Exactly.
I'm glad you landed on the same spot that I did, Eric. Eric was on my side in terms of Dom's answer. It was clearly of annoyance.
He's just pissed.
Yeah.
He just doesn't like these plays work, but he did make a good point. Like he'd rather see that than a seam pass or a play in the slot.
Slot shot, yeah.
But Vegas has a variety, and they seem to have worked out something really well there. But it's kind of unlucky. Suzuki, 7 for 10 in the defensive zone, and the 3 plays that he's lost the faceoff, they've scored. I mean, and the one of the 3 goals, 2 of them were scored tonight, but one of the 3, like, that's not one of the 3, but one of the ones that they got scored on a faceoff play was Kotkaniemi, who lost one, and the puck plinked out to Janmark, who scored the goal. It was a bit lucky that the puck got to him and ended up in the net, but still, it's something they're going to have to pay attention to.
One quick one from me, Sean, before you dig in. I mean, one thing we should talk about, and because we talked about it so much after the coaching changes were made, Eric, in terms of the Canadiens' penalty kill now, what is it, 21 for 21, just an outstanding job. Obviously, Vegas has tried a whole bunch of different things. They got the 2 defenseman units. They've got a couple of different ones. It seems as though their puck movement is occasionally good. They've got some motion. But what are the Canadiens doing so effectively? I mean, we saw it in the Jets series. 2, 3 shorties. One was into an empty net, but the 2 that they created from their pressure situation, what have they been able to do to be so effective while playing a man down?
Well, I'll start with Carey Price. I mean, he's just made unbelievable saves, but really the aggression from their forwards on the loose pucks, their willingness to stay in the tight box and not run out to the points, they're doing a great job just covering the key areas of the ice and getting their sticks in the lanes. Like, it's all the cliche stuff that you hear about why a penalty kill works well, but their pressure up ice is also really impressive. And the guys that they have, and I said this, like, going back to the regular season when Claude Julien was fired, like, the Canadiens had the 21st best penalty kill in the league, and I'm like how? Like, how with these guys? Like, you have Edmondson, you have Sherrod, you have Weber, you have Lehkonen, you have Byron, you have Evans, you have Danault. I should have mentioned Danault first, and Price and Allen behind them, and Toffoli's killing penalties and scoring shorthanded goals, and Anderson could do it if you really want him to. Like, how the heck they should be top 5 in the NHL on the penalty kill. It should be their bread and butter. Made that point then, and through these playoffs, everything that they're supposed to do there has really happened. And maybe it's just the inclination to sacrifice that much more at this time of year to do it. But wow, Vegas has a very dangerous power play. Even when you do a great job against them, they can get one rush chance or one play set up in the offensive zone where they can really make you pay. That's where Price comes up huge. I think Yoel Armia is doing a great job on the penalty kill. Right now he's playing the best hockey of his life. I mean, let's face it. You guys know Yoel Armia pretty well. Same kind of narrative has dogged him everywhere he's gone, whether it's Buffalo, Winnipeg, Montreal. He's got all the tools to be a tremendous player. At times you say to yourself, does he have the heart to do it? And finds himself on a line with Corey Perry and Eric Stahl and the role in a penalty kill, and he's just been fantastic. He scored his 5th goal of the playoffs, and look how he did it. Slammed Martinez into the boards, fights his way to the front of the net, gets a shot off, gets it into the net. This guy's playing the best hockey of his life.
Eric, I had thought about the last 4 teams left standing here, and you're talking about some phenomenal coaches involved in here. Dom Ducharme is just trying to lock down his job full-time here, which I think I'd be pretty surprised if he hasn't. But you would think that the coaching deficit would exist more for Montreal than any other team, based on the 4 coaches left standing. I haven't seen them enough, and honestly, in the regular season, it seemed like a lot of the stuff that he was trying to do wasn't working. But you are going to give us as good of a breakdown of this as anyone. What do you think of Dom Ducharme from what we saw tonight? Is this in-series adjustments? Like, do you credit what happened in that Toronto series to in-series adjustments? And do you see what we saw here tonight? Is that Dom Ducharme affecting the outcome of the series by making the little necessary tweaks to set his team up to, correct the things that didn't go so well in the previous games?
I don't know if it's so much technical as much as it is the belief he's garnered and the trust he's garnered from the team and his willingness to rely on the depth to pull people in and take people out and put them back in and put them in positions to succeed. His communication with each line and what he expects of them, the roles that he's designated to everyone. I think he's done great with that stuff. I think it speaks volumes that you have a commitment level to the system. You don't win games the way their Canadiens are doing with a recipe that seems to be such a rigid kind of template. Get the lead, play hard defense. You don't get that without really good coaching. But I will say this, boy, if you have to be an interim head coach and a rookie in this league, you could not possibly do better than having Shea Weber as your captain and a room with a bunch of Stanley Cup winners and veterans like Perry and Stahl and, like
Edmondson.
Yeah. Edmondson. Name. Go down the list. You could pretty much name any guy that's not a rookie on this team right now, and you'd be saying, "Oh yeah, character guy, good guy, character." You have that. That's a real beneficial situation for a coach who's fighting to get his job, and you got to give him full credit. I think he's doing great, and I think if he needs to rely on other guys, like it's funny. See someone mentioning Thomas Tatar's name right now. I don't think Ducharme would hesitate to put that player in if he felt, hey, like we haven't scored a goal in a couple games, we need him. And I think he has all those guys still engaged. And look at what he's gotten out of Kotkaniemi and Caulfield and guys that didn't start the playoffs, Romanov, who jumped in and played well at times. He's still got them on the hook. So, and you've seen guys in the past, they get skipped and all of a sudden they're disengaged. Like this team is fully engaged in every single guy. And at a certain point, you got to look at the head coach and say, okay, he's doing the job. But he's very fortunate to have that support. And, I think Luke Richardson, who's in charge of the penalty kill, obviously is doing a great job. Alex Burrows is in charge of the power play, which took a lot of heat going over 15 to start the playoffs. They've been very functional, if not a big part of the success that the Canadiens have had moving forward, especially against Winnipeg. They really found a rhythm and a groove with their top unit, and they're even playing Eric Gustafsson as a result of it, and he's been in on a lot of those plays. So this guy's doing a really good job.
Let's dig in on Nick Suzuki a little bit. I love that individual effort, the one-handed effort, and man, oh man, if Fleury doesn't make that push over with his left pad, that's one of the best highlight reel goals you're ever going to see in a playoff game. The one-handed effort around the toe drag between his own legs, goes to the one hand, gets the shot off, then resets and gets a stick on the chance. I mean, I loved the physical nature of his game. I love that he's not backing down. He seems to really embrace the challenges. I mean, Eric, what's it been like to see his growth and development from last year's playoffs where he's just starting to scratch the surface to this year where he's really embraced that role technically I know it's not the number one line because Deneau handles that role, but this is their number one scoring line. What have you seen specifically from Suzuki?
I'll go back to the first time I spoke to Nick Suzuki in Montreal. It was at rookie camp, head of training camp. No, couldn't have been. Had to have been development. I don't know. I'm going to mix up the days right now, but one of the first times that I actually sat down with him and talked to him, I said, spoken to some scouts about you, and they all say that you have the skill, the talent, you're even a little faster than most people might even suggest, but they wonder if you have the intensity to play at this level. And he said, you may not look like it, but I don't need to skate 100 miles an hour to be intense. He said, I don't need to be going at full speed all over the ice like you see in today's game to show that I'm an intense player, and you will see who I am and what I'm about. And that was one of the very first instances that revealed to me that Nick Suzuki knows exactly how good he is. He is pure Canadiana. He's the humble, quiet kid, unassuming, doesn't boast about himself, doesn't talk about himself. Generally gets even a little bit uncomfortable speaking in a kind of way that would come across as cocky. But when you start to dissect the game with him and talk to him about the details of it, and then you talk to his teammates and speak to other people around, that is what you get. You come away knowing that this kid knows exactly how good he is. And he is 21 years old, and Ben Sherratt said the other day, he's mature beyond his years, and that's a big reason why he's so successful. And that has been so obvious since he's gotten here. He's a cerebral, smart kid. But I think what's been great about his story is his ability to show exactly what people doubted in him. that he is intense, that he will not shy away from the physical battle, that he's been targeted going back to junior and it's not going to change moving forward, that he models his game after Patrice Bergeron and wants to be that type of player. And you see it at both ends of the ice. And like, he's 21. Like, look at how good he is right now and think about how good he's going to be in 2-3 years. You know, he is going to turn into a very, very complete player. He already is one. And the Canadiens have not had a center of his quality since Saku Koivu was in their uniform. So it's a great story. He's a great kid. His teammates absolutely love him. He's a big game player.
This is going to be the last one, Eric, because you and I are going to have to get to work tomorrow as the Canadiens will be back here. And so we'll start getting the work done here in Montreal. But I had thought that there were certain points throughout the game, even in that second period spots in it, where the Canadiens were starting to reestablish that neutral zone. I don't want to call it the trap, but really tripping up Vegas's momentum going through there. And I thought as well, the ability for the Canadiens to kind of force other teams into mistakes. I thought that game-winning goal, Ken and I talked about it before you got on here, but it's Vegas, throwing everything that they have at them to try and trap them in the zone. And to me, that was the mistake that they forced out of them to get that third goal. Are you seeing, because we'd said that, those last 3 games against Toronto looked a lot like the 4 games against Winnipeg. Were you seeing the Canadiens reestablish the type of game that they wanted to play in the neutral zone and in their own zone exits tonight compared to what we saw in game 1?
I think we saw it in spurts. I think Vegas is really effective at stretching the ice. Maybe even more, much more in the image of the way Toronto likes to play, not necessarily the way Toronto was able to play against Montreal. They just seemed to have trouble with the forecheck when things got nasty in the last 3 games of the series. But Vegas, with the size and skill and speed of their back end, does a tremendous job of stretching the ice, and I think it's rocked Montreal back on its heels a few times in the series. This game in general on both sides there was a lot more mistakes in it than we've seen in the previous games. I think both teams are going to be looking to clean up a lot of stuff going into game 3. Canadiens have to love the way they started the game. They got 7 of the first 8 shots. They got a goal from Armia. They got 1 from Toffoli soon after. This team is not going to go gently. They're not going to go away easily. And we're going to be at the Bell Center soon. We'll see how they perform and how they make the adjustments. It's only going to be 3,500 people there. But Sean, I'm from Montreal. People might accuse me of some sort of bias when I say that. I don't think 2,500 fans would sound louder in any other arena. And you got to experience yourself what it was like.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So
you told me, and I was surprised because I'd been in Winnipeg for the 500 fans before that, and I remember you'd said 2,500 fans. I know that's 5 times as many fans as we saw in Winnipeg, but that's a way, way bigger building to fill with sound. But you're entirely right, and I had people texting me saying, "Oh, is it really as crazy as it sounds there?" And I was like, "Yeah, it does. I mean, when they score, it sounds very much like." A full building, right? So I'm interested to see what the extra 1,000 fans are going to do for game 3 and for game 4. It sure would be nice if they could get to a stage where you get like half capacity. That would sound phenomenal. But you are entirely right. It was something to see or something to hear and experience, just those 2,500 fans. And even when the series was wrapped against the Jets, as people were leaving, the ole, ole, ole chants and what we saw on the outside of the building, they definitely know how to celebrate here in Montreal. Maybe sometimes they take it a little bit too far. But Ken, you have anything you want to end on?
No, fabulous. Eric, thanks for joining us. I love that both your columns were bang on as usual. Always nice when it lines up nicely. Petrie after game 1, and then I said it on before you came on, putting the spotlight on the third line. What do? Come up with the game-winning goal. That's all they do. Love the way that the fourth line got into more of a rhythm and sort of set the tempo. I mean, I love what Corey Perry said. That was a carbon copy of the way that goal was a carbon copy of the way they want to play. Win battles down low, win battles along the boards, get to the net, get the puck there, low to high, score. Loved what I saw from them. And I love Petrie's game. Petrie's game was excellent.
I just want to add one thing here because I saw the comment roll in that, get more vaccinated people into the Bell Center. I'm not defending any decisions here or this or that. I just want to explain one thing. In Quebec right now, only 18% of the population has received the second dose of the vaccine. So getting a certain sector of the population in there that's been fully vaccinated is a complicated matter. It's the first thing. The second thing is, I understand everyone wants the Bell Center to be full. They want to have the Canadiens not at a disadvantage versus what you're seeing in Vegas. They were able to get the split regardless. I think the reason why the Quebec government has not given an exception to the Canadiens is because they don't want to give an exception to the Canadiens. This is a rule that is in place for the entire province. It's to ensure that our low COVID numbers right now, which are lower than they've been since last summer, remain that way. And we've just got to stay the course a little bit longer here. And this is progress. There's 1,000 extra fans that are being let into the building. And if the Canadiens can keep going and advancing, it'll be more and more. The idea is for us to never take a step backwards here. We took too many throughout this entire pandemic. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm really in a frame of mind where I don't think we're going to go backwards from this point. And so long as we keep making responsible decisions and do things in a way that we're not going to, yeah, it sucks. The Bell Center is not going to have as many fans as we want to see in there for now. But if we keep doing the right things, it is going to get there, and we're going to get back to the life we all want to live. So that's my opinion on it. I would love more than anyone to be in that building with that type of atmosphere. It makes my job the most fun it could possibly be. But, I think let's just take it for what it is, which is a sign of progress for a province that has been hit very hard by this disease.
Well, I'll say, Eric, I was here and covering round 2 with you against the Winnipeg Jets. I was here on the day they went from the code red to the code orange, and just the kind of freedom that you saw being earned there. It meant a lot for me being from Manitoba because we'd had such a hard time, and, our area being one of the worst hit areas by the end with COVID there. We're starting to get our numbers under control. Ken, I think it was 144 today. Cases, although there were 7 deaths, which is still far too much. But I agree with you, Eric. It's time to stop taking improper steps forward that just lead to us taking steps backward. It's time for us to slowly and steadily walk our way out of this so that we can get out of this as quick as possible. And you're right. I mean, the idea of a government trying to make sure that you say, even as much as people love the Habs, and want to see that happen, and it's probably tough for Canadiens fans to take a look at that Vegas building, which we've been in there during the playoffs. It's a great playoff building.
Amazing.
It's something else to experience.
Amazing in the regular season.
Exactly, but so is the Montreal Canadiens during the playoffs and during the regular season, just as the whiteout is in Winnipeg. I know we want to see that, but we got to get through this and do it the right way. Here, Tracy Evans-Burr mirrors exactly what I'm thinking. Great to hear Eric's analysis. We love having you on the show, Eric. Hopefully we can continue to do so throughout the series, and I'm looking forward to we're probably meeting up and working tomorrow together, Eric. That's going to be great to see you again, and maybe you can take me for that Cuban sandwich again. The last time I was here, that was absolutely phenomenal. And my kids said I need to find out from you because we were in Grand Beach yesterday. I had a daddy-daughter day with my 2 daughters before I left on the road here, and I took them for poutine, and they knew I was going to Montreal, and they were like, you need to talk to your friend Eric and find out where the best poutine in Montreal is so that if we ever go there, if you ever take us there, you can take us for the best poutine. So that's what I'll be hitting up for you while we're here, but it's going to be great to see you tomorrow, Eric. Ken, great catching up with you. We spent a lot of time on the phone today. I'm glad we made this work, and I'm glad we got to spend our time with our viewers who came out full force. We had 170 here today, which is great for a non-Jets related show. Thank you so much for helping us power the show here, everyone. Thanks again, Eric. We will see you after Game 3.
Poutines for all.